When I think about some of my favorite games I've played over the years, one of them always seems to come to mind: Hotline Miami. But why was this? What kept me coming back? Was it the game's hard and unforgiving, yet surprisingly addictive gameplay? Or maybe it was the intricate plots and portrayal of violence that had me thinking about it many weeks later? Or, quite possibly, was it one of the most godly soundtracks to ever reach my ears? I think it was a combination of these and a little bit more, but I really wanted to find out how it would hold up over 12 years later. You see, Hotline Miami just isn't another shooter. It's a pulsing, psychedelic descent into madness. With its top-down perspective and pixelated gore, the game marries brutal gameplay with a surreal narrative that lingers long after the bullets stop flying. As you don a series of haunting animal masks and embark on kill or be killed missions, Hotline Miami forces you to confront the consequences of violence. It's a game that doesn't just challenge your reflexes too, but your perceptions of morality in gaming. So today I'll be covering its development, the gameplay, its story and themes, as well as the legacy it left behind. So prepare yourself for a mind-bending journey that defies what you'd expect from standard gaming conventions and leaves a permanent mark on your gaming whiteboard. We start with its history, which really helps set the scene for this chaotic tale. Something I always admire about indie games is that their origin stories are nothing short of amazing, and with Hotline Miami, I had no idea how intense it would get. Picture this: it's the early 2000s in Sweden, and an 18-year-old Jonathan Soderstrom is hunched over his computer, furiously coding a game called Super Carnage. His vision? A top-down shooter where the goal is simple yet brutal: kill as many people as possible. But, like many of Soderstrom's early projects, it ends up in a dreaded, unfinished and unreleased box, a digital graveyard of abandoned chaos. Fast forward a few years, and Jonathan meets Dennis Whedon, a synth-punk musician who sounded like a real character. I mean, the guy's band was called fucking Werewolf Asso, which to me I think also hints at the chaos to come. They click instantly, collaborating on quirky projects like an interactive music video called Keyboard Drum Set Fucking Werewolf. I kid you not. But unfortunately, their ambitious Life Death Island project proves a bit too much to handle, leaving them broke and desperate for a hit. Enter Whedon, rummaging through Soderstrom's digital junkyard like a treasure hunter. He stumbles upon Super Carnage and sees a diamond in the rough. He grew up with these retro classics like Gauntlet and Chaos Engine, so they decided to resurrect the project, renaming it Cocaine Cowboy after this gritty documentary. Eventually, this evolves into the neon-soaked, ultra-violent masterpiece we now know as Hotline Miami. However, the road to get there was paved with blood, sweat, and pixels. For 9 grueling months, Denaton Games, their two-man studio, battled an outdated GameMaker engine, bizarre bugs, as well as their own demons. Whedon even spent 2 weeks in the hospital dealing with mental health issues following a really bad breakup. The development was, in Whedon's own words, fucking hard. They faced some ridiculous challenges, like the game crashing if certain printers were plugged in. I mean, who would have thought that your choice of office equipment could sabotage your magnum opus? Actually, no wait, I'm looking at my HP printer right next to me, and that's exactly what it would do. What really set Hotline Miami apart though was its design philosophy. The duo didn't care about the critics or what average players might think. They were making a game that they would enjoy, focusing on fast-paced, unforgiving gameplay over realism. Mechanics like throwing weapons were actually originally coding errors that they decided to keep in their final game. The art direction and soundtrack also became extremely iconic. Whedon's pixel arts, inspired by synthwave and 80s culture, paired perfectly with the game's violent content. The soundtrack, compiled from independent artists found just on Bandcamp, didn't just set the mood, it became a character of its own. Tracks like Hydrogen by Moon and Miami Disco by Perturbator heighten the intensity of every blood-soaked mission. Perhaps one of the game's biggest strengths though was its minimalist yet powerful storytelling, heavily inspired by movies like Drive and the surreal works of David Lynch. They crafted a narrative full of mystery and intrigue, one that players could either dive into or just skip entirely, depending on how they prefer to experience the game. But all of this led to a single defining moment, when the team sent a demo to Devolver Digital. Devolver saw the potential and quickly signed on as the game's publisher, allowing Hotline Miami to become the brutal, neon-soaked experience we now know today. But they saw something in these devs that I am truly grateful for, as after the release of Hotline Miami in October 2012, the way I view games would change forever. And to explain why I say that, we first have to look at its gameplay. Hotline Miami is this brutal, fast-paced action game that leaves no room for error. From the moment you dive in, the game grabs you with its unforgiving difficulty, visceral gameplay, and stylish retro aesthetic. It's a game that requires split-second decision-making, precise execution, and constant adaptation. Hotline Miami's core mechanics, weapon systems, unique masks, challenging level design, and emphasis on replayability make for an experience that is equally punishing yet still very rewarding. For me, I think the heart of Hotline Miami is its core mechanic, the one-hit kill. This system sets the stage for the game's high-octane gameplay, where every move matters. The top-down view lets you see the enemies ahead, but even with that information, you must still execute your plans with precision. Timing is everything here. You'll find yourself rushing through rooms, dodging bullets, and taking down enemies all within the blink of an eye. The game's tight, responsive controls are key to this experience. You can quickly switch between melee combat, firearms, and various environmental attacks like the doors, all creating a fluidity that encourages experimentation. Sometimes you'll just knock a door into an enemy to stun them, throw a weapon to gain a moment of advantage, or shoot through a window to take out enemies from a distance. This game constantly pushes you to think on your feet and adapt to this ever-changing situation around you. But how do you balance the thrill of going loud versus the stealthy approach? Let's dive into the weaponry that shapes your strategy. The variety of weapons in Hotline Miami really keep the gameplay fresh and exciting. The game's arsenal includes everything from silent melee weapons like bats and knives to these noisy firearms like shotguns and assault rifles. The decision to go loud or quiet isn't just about preference. Using guns can attract nearby enemies, quickly turning a controlled situation into a frantic firefight. You'll often need to switch between the two mid-level, say like tossing a bat to stun an enemy and quickly picking up a gun to take out another before they have a chance to react. You'll just feel your adrenaline surge through you as you burst through a door, bat in hand, ready to silence any unsuspecting thug before he has a chance to react. This constant weapon swapping really keeps the action dynamic. Each run might see you using different combinations depending on what you will find in the environment and how you choose to engage the enemies in front of you. The unpredictability of the available weapons and the ever-changing enemy behavior really keep you on your toes here, constantly helping you to rethink your approach. But while you're thinking about what weapons you prefer, don't forget about your masks. These interesting additions offer unique bonuses that can significantly change your playstyle. Before each mission, Hotline Miami introduces an interesting twist in the form of its mask system. Each mask grants you with a different gameplay bonus, such as making you faster, giving you lethal punches, or allowing you to avoid being detected by guard dogs. These bonuses add a strategic layer to the gameplay, influencing how you approach each mission. Choosing a mask just isn't about picking a bonus though, it's about shaping your playstyle. Some masks encourage close combat, where others favor stealth or speed. Let's take the Tony mask for example, which makes your punches lethal, which is perfect for players who prefer hand-to-hand combat. I mean, it's great at the beginning, but then if you want to get your combo meter up, it's not that great. Then you get the Don Juan mask, where you're going to be turning doors into deadly weapons, which really rewards players that like to use the environment to their advantage. The system allows for a range of playstyles, ensuring that each run feels distinct. And something I enjoy is that the variety of masks unlock more options as you progress through the game. Some are easier to unlock than others, and I'll get to that a bit later. Revisiting levels with different masks opens up new strategies and ways to tackle familiar challenges, contributing to the game's overall replayability. And something I didn't actually know before doing all this research is that these masks' abilities weren't actually meant to be in the game, but a slip up during one of their interviews during development meant that they had to go back and actually go and implement all of it, which is pretty insane. Something else I really love is the level design. Hotline Miami's level design is as challenging as its core mechanics. Each level is a carefully crafted maze of rooms, hallways, and open spaces filled with enemies just waiting to take you down in an instant. The game offers a mix of open areas that allow for fast, chaotic combat, as well as these narrow corridors that force more strategic planning. The levels are designed to make you feel both empowered yet vulnerable. One wrong move and you're back to square one. For me personally, I love the close combat, like just running in. Yes, it might seem like you don't have to think as well, you can kind of just go in there with your knife and slash everyone, but it really intensifies the combat because you're just thinking to yourself, if this was really happening, you feel like a John Wick character, just going in, swiping everyone, trying to throw bats and throw guns and throw punches. It's all so intense, especially in those tight spaces. But does that make the game difficult? So for me, I think one of the defining features of Hotline Miami is its relentless difficulty. The game operates on a one-hit kill system for you and your enemies, which means that even the slightest mistake can result in an instant death. The difficulty isn't just about the combat mechanics though, but also about how you navigate each level. Enemies move very quickly, firing weapons at lightning speed that can take you down from off screen. And don't even get me started on the dogs. They are brutal. However, the game's difficulty is never unfair. The fast reset system allows you to instantly restart after dying, encouraging trial and error. Each death is a learning opportunity, pushing you to master the level layout, enemy patterns, as well as your own strategies. Overcoming the challenge, stringing together perfect kill combos, and surviving the carnage is always so deeply satisfying. I often stop playing levels in games simply because of that downtime that I need in order to get back to where I was. But here, that instant restart means no time is lost. I mean, sometimes I even enjoyed dying because it was like a warm-up, or it let me try out strategies I'd never do otherwise, because overall I just lose a few seconds. This also means that you can go wild and try new and interesting ways of completing the level. Now the music keeps going, you're in this rhythm, it's been building and building so much that you barely have any adrenaline left. You go in remembering almost every single enemy placement and what to do. Your heart is racing, your fingers sweating on your controller or keyboard. Tunnel vision locked in. You kill everyone. Blood is everywhere. Nothing else is in your mind except clearing this level. You frantically smash the last thug's head in, and the text "Chapter Clear" appears on the screen, and the music screeches to a halt. It leaves you in an almost state of shock. It's like you've stopped being this pixelated character, and now it's just you, the real you. And the game makes you realize that you created all of this violence. You now walk back to where you came in, but sometimes you get lost and get confused about where to go. This part, this moment of introspection, it's amazing. It's done so brilliantly. Feeling of unease rushes over you as you get in your car and the score screen appears and the relaxed music kicks in again and all is well. Many games try to recreate this intense feeling, but I think Hotline Miami does it best, creating such an intense sense of euphoria that is instantly ripped beneath you. You're left feeling almost disgusted with yourself, but you give yourself a few minutes and you'll want to do it all over again. Now, does this all feel repetitive? To some, maybe, but the game isn't that long. It's structured into 5 parts, each with their own number of levels or chapters. There's a total of 20 levels, so once you get the hang of it, you can finish this game in almost one sitting. Obviously, if you want to get high scores and unlock all the secrets, it might take you a few extra days. But then how does that add to the game's replayability? For me, it depends on your playstyle. The fast-paced gameplay, combined with the wide variety of weapons, masks, and tactics, to me makes each playthrough feel unique. The game's scoring system rewards not only speed, but creativity, encouraging you to string together kills and combos and rack up points. Chasing higher scores and better rankings on each level can honestly become an addictive challenge, especially when combined with the urge to unlock new masks and weapons. Whether you're coming back to improve your score, unlock new items, or simply experience the thrill of the challenge all over again, Hotline Miami offers endless reasons to replay. Each run feels like a fresh opportunity to experience with different weapons, masks, and strategies. Of course, it has a limit. I don't think I'm going to be playing this for years on end, but every now and again, when I just want to feel and hear that music coming in, it is so satisfying to jump back in. But it isn't just the gameplay that kept me coming back for more, as now we're going to look at the game's audio and visual additions that easily make it stand out in its field. So now it's time to talk about the style, because holy shit, Hotline Miami is a feast for the senses. The visuals are this perfect blend of 80s neon and gritty pixel art. It's like someone took Miami Vice, ran it through a blender with some LSD, and then spat it out onto your screen. It's got this high contrast color palette that's in your face, and it's not trying to be realistic or anything. It's trying to burn itself into your retinas. And it works. Even in 2024 and beyond, this game looks so distinct. You could spot a Hotline Miami screenshot from a mile away. It uses a distinct pixelated art style that's drenched in these neon colors and violent imagery, and these visuals are chaotic, with vivid pinks, purples, and greens that evoke a surreal, almost psychedelic atmosphere. The game clearly draws inspiration from the retro era of gaming, creating this nostalgic look while still feeling quite modern. This also means that objects and enemies are easier to see. It clears your brain so you can focus on just the colors of, say, white, turquoise, and tan, the standard colors of the thugs. And props to the devs, as even with its minimal amount of pixels, this game was able to capture so much emotion. I mean, the finishing moves here just feel so brutal. You can tell what you've done. You know that you've just rammed your fingers into this person's eyes. You feel it. This visual emotion carries you through this game from start to finish. And the same can be said for its audio design. Now, this is true, but I listened to its soundtrack way before I even played the game. I don't know how that happened, but all I remember is that in the comments section on YouTube, someone asked, "What genre of music is this?" To which someone replied, "Cocaine." Oh man, that soundtrack. I could go on. It's not just the background music, it's the heartbeat of the game. And the devs knew this, calling it crucial to the experience. They wanted it to sound like a movie soundtrack, not game music, and boy, did they nail it. I guess a better term for it would be synthwave, which originated in the mid-2000s, which was heavily inspired by 1980s pop culture, particularly movies, video games, and electronic music. And because the game is set in the late 1980s, the soundtrack fits the game like a glove. Some might call it repetitive, but after playing this game for a few hours, you'll know it needed to be. Dying constantly on the same level meant you'd be listening to the same song over and over. So even though it could be frustrating at times, you'd have this time where part of the song would align perfectly, the beat would kick in, and you would just receive this rush of euphoria and motivation. And yeah, to this day, I can still recite all of the songs, even though it sounds weird me doing it out loud. And just the overall sounds in general, I mean, the gun sounds sounded pretty chunky, and so did the melee weapons. You always felt like you were hitting something with some weight behind it. However, it did take me a few plays to understand what was going on in the story. You might want to skip this part if you want to avoid spoilers, but I'm going to be jumping into the various story, plot lines, and the themes throughout. Now, you can quite easily fly by the original Hotline Miami without ever noticing the story. I mean, that's just what I did when I first played. It didn't really make sense to me, and I just wanted to jump back into the combat. But damn, I had no idea how intricate and interesting its story and themes actually were. Everything is very surreal here, and when combined with its Tarantino-like fragmented narratives, it can be quite confusing to keep up, but bear with me. The narrative unfolds in a fragmented, almost dreamlike manner, with each level offering cryptic clues about the main player's motivations and the true nature of his missions. The story is deliberately ambiguous, encouraging players to piece together the plot from scattered hints and surreal sequences. You play as Jacket, which is not his real name, but the community just dubbed him that, so we're going with it. And you start getting these weird messages on your answering machine. The next thing you know, you're donning animal masks and painting the town red. Literally. After each massacre, you visit these places where this dude named Beard hooks you up with free stuff. Pizza, movies, booze. It's all like this really weird, twisted reward system. But here's where it gets really weird. Jacket starts seeing these three masked figures. They're asking him questions, messing with his head, and making him and you question everything. The game plays with your perception of reality. You rescue this girl, you start a relationship with her, but then things start to go sideways. You find her dead, you get shot, and then you end up in a coma. And that's when you realize that you've been reliving the past 2 months all while being knocked out. When you wake up, you go on this revenge spree that makes your previous actions look pretty tame. You storm a police station, confront the dude who shot you, and eventually take on the entire Russian mafia. But here's the kicker. After you finish Jacket's story, you unlock levels where you play as the biker, the guy you thought you killed earlier. His story runs parallel to Jacket's, and it's through him that you uncover the truth behind the mysterious phone calls. Turns out there's this group called 50 Blessings pulling the strings, using people like Jacket and Biker to destabilize the Russo-American coalition. It's political, it's personal, and it's pretty fucked up. The game gives you 2 endings, depending on whether you piece together all the clues that you can pick up in each level. But at its core, Hotline Miami is a story about identity, violence, and the thin line between reality and madness. As you progress through the game, Jacket's sense of self begins to unravel, and the distinction between what is real and what is imagined becomes increasingly blurred. The theme of disorientation is reflected in the game's visual and auditory design, with shifting perspectives, distorted imagery, and a soundtrack that often feels as though it's pulling you deeper into this nightmarish trance. To this day, I can't get over how this game gets into my head. It's like you have no choice but to be Jacket even when you're just playing another video game. But for me, the game's exploration of violence is particularly striking. Hotline Miami doesn't shy away from depicting graphic violence, but it also forces players to confront the consequences of their own actions. The aftermath of each level is often a scene of carnage, with you just left to contemplate the bodies left in your wake. This juxtaposition of adrenaline-fueled action and moments of quiet reflection create a sense of unease here, challenging you to think about the role of violence in video games and its impact on the human psyche. And 12 years later, the story of Hotline Miami continues to be a subject of analysis and discussion among fans and critics alike. Its open-ended narrative and complex themes really have ensured that it remains a topic of conversation in various gaming communities, with new interpretations and theories emerging as players revisit the game. Some people think that Jacket's got dissociative identity disorder, with each mask representing a different personality. Others see it as a commentary on how we disassociate ourselves from violence in video games. It's all pretty interesting, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. The game also plays around with the idea of a meta avatar, a character that makes you question your own actions and identity as a player. It's not just about controlling Jacket. It's about questioning why you're doing what you're doing. It's all very interesting, and I'd like to hear from you in the comment section what you think about these themes of violence and consequences. Also, what kind of legacy has Hotline Miami left behind, and what kind of influence has it had on the gaming culture? Well, that's going to be up next. Since the release of the original Hotline Miami game, many devs have tried to mimic its style, but each have tried to add their own unique flair, which I really value here. There are plenty, but here are 7 that I personally think stood out in their own different ways that are so much fun to play. First on the scene was Deadbolt, which came out in 2016. It's got the pixelated graphics, but this time it's in a 2D side-scroller, but it's still got that one-shot, one-kill gameplay that also becomes more like a puzzle the more you play, except here stealth is more important. Bonus, it's made by Hoppu Games, so they've got Chris Christodoulou on the soundtrack, which if you've ever played Risk of Rain 2, you'll know that you're in for a treat here. Next came Ruiner in 2017. This one is top down, but it's in 3D and it's set in the cyberpunk style, and it is brilliant. It's got that same fast-paced, brutal combat, except here there's more of a focus on long-range combat and special abilities. And again, that music is unbelievably good. Then Ape Out came out in 2019, where you play as this gorilla escaping captivity. This one was also published by Devolver Digital. I think by then they knew what they were doing in the indie gaming scene, especially in this genre. It's not as well known as the others here, but I played it and finished the whole game in about 2 hours, and I loved every moment of it. It's got this vibrant minimalist art style that is incredible, and the way that the jazz music goes along with the gameplay, it's insane. Katana Zero was next, still in 2019, also published by Devolver. I think you're seeing a pattern here. Fans of Hotline Miami love this game. It's got this incredible neo-noir storyline where you play as this katana-wielding assassin with amnesia who can also slow down time and predict the future. It's got a similar vibe in terms of look and feel to Hotline Miami, except that it's got a bit more emphasis on dialogue, and it makes great use of its time manipulation mechanics. Then came My Friend Pedro, and oh boy, can you try and guess the publisher. It doesn't have the same one-shot, one-kill formula, but it does share similar qualities like the music, the restart on death, and damn, those kill combos. This game doesn't take itself seriously, but man, I had so much fun playing this game, especially with all that slow-mo, which I haven't enjoyed so much since playing Max Payne 3. And then in 2023, a game not published by Devolver, we've got Ocho, which is very similar to Hotline, but many felt like it fixed a lot of things wrong with it. You've got a health bar, you've got more weapons, and overall a lot less jank. But you still get that intense gameplay, and my gosh, that soundtrack. And then lastly, a game that came out this year, and yes, Devolver were behind this one too, it's Angerfoot. It's a game that many have wanted for years, a first-person Hotline Miami, except the developers Free Lives wanted to add their own South African on drugs twist here. More kicks, hilarious storyline and enemy types, and overall just a very fun game that doesn't take itself seriously at all, and of course, that soundtrack is just wild. Yes, there are still many more games out there. Let me know in the comments section below what other games that you really enjoyed that were similar. And I think it's about time to wrap up with the conclusion and put this whole story together. So now it's time to take all of this and sum it all together. First up, that gameplay. Does it still hold up in 2024? Absolutely. I mean, the game is not perfect, I'll admit. It still has a lot of jank and some bugs have never been fixed. And it's still just as hard. But that's the beauty of Hotline Miami. And I think it's that difficulty that keeps me coming back. And in terms of its style, even though the synthwave genre has died down a bit since its release, that iconic 80s retro feel for me will never get old. The graphics, also by design, will always feel nostalgic, so you don't have to worry there, and they'll always still feel unique to this day. When it comes to the game's relevance, there's still violence wherever we go, and it's a topic that's often not addressed, especially in gaming. Hotline Miami's meta commentary still holds up for me, and honestly, it's one of those games that I still think about every now and then when it comes to topics like violence. And yes, many similar games have come out since Hotline Miami. Some, like Ocho, wanted the same vibe but went and fixed all the jank. But I've played all of these other games, and for me, Hotline Miami still stands out from the rest. I think it comes down to its combination of everything mentioned above. Yes, it's very primitive, but it's still very engaging and satisfying when you get good at the game. And you may have noticed that up until now I haven't even mentioned the sequel. I really wanted to include it in this video, but it got a bit too long, so I might save it for the next or an upcoming video. Let me know in the comment section if you'd like to see that too. But in the end, Hotline Miami isn't just a game. It's a cultural phenomenon that I feel like has left a permanent mark on the gaming industry. Its blend of fast-paced gameplay, atmospheric storytelling, and that unforgettable music has inspired a generation of developers and players alike. Whether you're a fan of retro games, intense action, or mind-bending narratives, Hotline Miami offers an experience that is as unique as it is unforgettable. In the end, it's not just the blood and neon that make Hotline Miami Miami stand out. It's the beating heart of creativity and vision that lies beneath it all. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'd like to hear from you. Have you played Hotline Miami, and how was it for you? Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more videos like this. But other than that, it's Marco here from Easily Distracted Games, and as always, don't stop gaming.